Hungry Trilobyte podcast would like to start by acknowledging SoonerCon. Get ready for the next chapter in Oklahoma's longest-running fan-run pop culture convention. SoonerCon will be returning in 2024, June 21st through 23rd. Get ready for a weekend of cosplay, fun and excitement, vendors, gaming, and more. You can go to SoonerCon.com for more information.
Okay, and welcome to the History of Fan Media. My name is Aaron Bostic. I'm the host of the Hungry Trilobyte podcast, and I'd like to start off by just saying we're going to be talking about all the ways that fan-made media, the people making media that are just fans like you guys, has kept fandom going for a century. But first, I'm going to start off by letting my esteemed colleagues introduce themselves, starting over here on my right.
I'm Brian Naydol. I'm the founder of Pulp Productions Studios. I do independent film.
My name is Erik Jaworski. I am a freelance photographer for cosplay and a leadership team member of Cos Meetup Chicago.
Me? Go ahead.
Hello, I am Hiroshi Kanatani, Japanese manga artist. My works is published in Japan, America, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and some other countries. And my works is include Godzilla and Ultraman, of course licensed.
And Hiroshi is going to be backed up by the very talented Hiroko here. So before we go ahead and get started on the conversation, I just want to do a quick video to kind of set the table on where we've come until now, and then the rest of the team is going to take it from the rest. Yep.
For over a century, science fiction as a genre has been driven by media made by fans. Here's a brief look at examples like fan conventions, fanzines, cosplay, comics, and film. The idea for conventions could be seen in 1891 when the Royal Albert Hall was rented out to celebrate the then popular novel The Coming Race. Although not a financial success, the event was popular enough to be extended for 2 extra days in order to keep up with demand. In July of 1939, the First World Science Fiction Convention was held. Worldcon 1 was literature-based, but it did feature events such as the screening of sci-fi films and panels about the science behind the stories. The first official comic convention was held in New York Comic Con in 1964, and the first ticket sold was allegedly bought by a teenage George R.R. Martin. The first Star Trek convention was held in January of 1972, and today, conventions are a part of our lives. For decades, the tool of choice for fans to communicate and circulate news was the fanzine. Small print publications started in the mid-1800s when printing presses became very small and cheap, and that coincides perfectly with the rise of the modern science fiction genre. Through the 20th century, zines were continually adapted to whatever cheap printing technology became available, and when desktop publishing became popular in the 1980s, zines adapted that too. In the 90s, the first real shift away from zines happened when websites offered the same information faster and to more people. Websites were the first step toward the streaming options we have today. For you cosplayers out there, you can credit the marriage of costuming and science fiction to none other than Jules Verne himself. Verne threw a party in 1877, and many of his guests showed up dressed as characters from his books. At the turn of the century, dressing up as the comic strip alien Mr. Skygak became a trend. Myrtle Ackerman showed up to Worldcon 1 in costume, although she and her date were the only ones to do so. This was remedied for Worldcon 2, which added a masquerade ball to its event roster. Cosplay was built into the comic conventions of the 1960s and the Star Trek conventions of the 1970s. Today, cosplay is about more than winning a contest or just showing off a cool idea. Entire sections of conventions are dedicated to it. Independent comics got their big start in the 1960s with the underground comics movement. At the time, it was designed to circumvent the comics code for morality. Thus, the comics produced at that time were done with the specific intent of offering as much sex, drugs, and violence as possible. It wouldn't be until the code was lifted in the mid-80s that mainstream publishers would offer more mature content as well, which left independent comic creators more nuanced in their motivations for stepping outside the major publishers. Today, creator-owned comics are the norm, with Kickstarter publishing as many comics as Marvel and DC. While today it seems like everyone is an independent filmmaker, the very concept of making a movie outside a major studio has been filled with challenges since the beginning. For 4 years, it was literally illegal for individual artists to buy film, thanks to Thomas Edison holding the patent on it and refusing to sell film outside the movie companies. When that ended, the studios structured the distribution of movies so that anyone trying to release a movie on their own had no hope of attaining an audience. This slowly changed as more screens, specifically drive-in theaters and television, increased the demand for movies, and the lock the studios had weakened very slowly. It wasn't until the digital age, however, when making a movie suddenly became cheap enough that nearly anyone could do it. And it wasn't until the streaming age when you could put a movie in anybody's lap just by pushing a button. In all these examples, two factors enabled fan media to grow as much as it has: digital technology and fans supporting each other in larger numbers.
But I think the bigger question now is, what obstacles are we looking at now, or what obstacles don't we have that we might have had 30 years ago if we had tried to get started making our fan media? Why don't I go ahead and let you start, Eric?
So again, the question was about how much has changed since 30 years,
Yes.
correct? All right.
Especially in the area of cosplay.
I definitely would say that even though I've only been in the cosplay scene for 5 to 6 years, it is kind of interesting how much has grown in the cosplay community, at least from what I've talked with my fellow cosplayers or that people I've done shoots with. Is like the intensity of the builds that they have, the materials that they get, where a number of times I've heard that it was like difficult to get the materials that they needed for the longest period of time. But now you have so many like companies that are producing such materials, whether the right type of cloth, the type of foam material, and just so many resources, especially online, where you can find guides and tutorials of how to like make a certain thing. So
Is it fair to say that those materials are being produced now because of the higher demand because of cosplay?
I would say yes. That would be for sure, especially even times where even studios are reaching out to even cosplayers to be able to help them out. So, for example, the 501 First, a lot of the studio reaches out to them because they have a lot of screen accurate costumes right there upon as that as well. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Brian? What would you say?
For film,
Yes.
with film, when I started, we used 2 VCRs to edit. It was just a big old camcorder on my shoulder, and it was a struggle, a very big struggle. And through time, it's gone from just a 1080 camera to a 4K camera, and now we're using stuff like Blackmagic pocket cameras and editing equipment's readily available that we didn't have back then. So it's just kind of gotten better and better and easier to do the independent film.
If you had to get started 30 years ago, how much harder would it have been?
30年前にやっぱりファンメディア Are you talking about manga?
Yes.
Oh yeah, because he's a manga artist. So your question is especially about creating fan media in manga format, right?
Yes.
Let me, yes. だから30年前その要するにファンメディアの漫画作るのってどういう感じだったか、どういう大変だったのか。
ああ、なるほど。Okay. Sorry for my English is so limited. So she helped me. Translator helped me. So excuse me. I speak Japanese. 30年前は、日本では、もう漫画は成熟してたので、まあプロもたくさんいましたし、そんなに大変っていうほどのもんではなかったです。
30 years ago, manga industry in Japan was already fully developed enough, and so it was not very difficult for fans to create their own art.
漫画の作り方としては、プロの漫画家のアシスタントになって、そこで学ぶっていうのがまあ一般的なやり方でした。
How to become manga artist, professional comic manga artist in Japan? Usually, you started being hired by specific manga artist as an assistant, and you started the paid job. Started assisting your manga master, manga artist, and at the same time, you get paid and you keep assisting your master artist, then you also learn how to create manga and a business itself. This is the most popular or general way to become manga artist in Japan, even 30 years ago.
ですので、今でもそのやり方は、基本的には変わらないんですけれども、今となっては漫画スクールとかそういうのもあるので、そういうところで学ぶ方もいます。
The way it is, still the same even after 30 years after from now. However, nowadays, even the manga school, it's a school train yourself to become professional manga artist. Even the professional school existing to become manga artist, that's a difference nowadays.
昔はですね、30年前以前は、僕たちもそうだったんですけど、どうやって漫画を学ぼうかっていうのを、皆さんずっと模索したんですけれども、結局その、プロの漫画家につくのが、一般的になって、どうやってプロの漫画家に、アシスタントとして入ろうかっていうのが、その時のアーティストたちの課題でした。
So for 30 years ago, to learn and get paid, to be everything same time, to become assistant, being hired by professional, already successful manga artists in Japan, that is for young manga artists who want to become professional artists getting paid, to them, how to be employed and hired by professional artists. That is perhaps the biggest challenge then, even 30 years ago.
僕はもうどの漫画家につくかを探し回ってた時期もありました。
In my case, when I was young, I was really trying hard to being hired by which artist. I've been really struggling and even conducting research, the proper successful manga artist for me to work with.
30年前はそういう時代でした。
That is how 30 years ago in Japan, how to become professional manga artist.
I like what you're saying, that you think back to when you were younger and you couldn't imagine being hired by that. And I want to ask, is there somebody from earlier in the fandom, either possibly when you were very young or before you were born, for whom you drew as an inspiration, or you look at their story and you say, this makes me want to do that?
You mean a particular manga artist?
If that's what you want. I mean, just any person who has that feeling.
例えばということは影響を受けた漫画家さんがいるはずで、それどなたか名前言えますか？
僕のですか？
そうです。そうです。
Yeah.
For me. Okay. Okay. When I was a childhood, I like Doraemon. Doraemon is my god. and yeah, Fujiko is my god. So, but I draw many Ultraman, Kamen Rider, Kaiju, and so on. And second, my god is Urusei Yatsura, Rumiko Takahashi.
So first, ideally he wanted to become like Fujio, the creator of Doraemon, because he was Doraemon. But when he was child. Doraemon was his childhood hero. Growing up, he really liked Urusei Yatsura. Then the creator is female manga artist Rumiko Takahashi. So now, when he was young, as a high school or college student, he wanted to become like Rumiko Takahashi, the creator of Urusei Yatsura.
Brian, how about you? Who inspired you growing up in the fandom? For film? Yeah.
For film, what inspired me was actually seeing Pulp Fiction. When I saw Pulp Fiction, I left the theater saying, that's what I want to do. And then a little movie called Clerks. I saw it and said, wow, those guys can do it. Why can't I do it? And then I would start to see movies, smaller movies, independent films like La Haine out of France, which was just a beautifully done movie. And it was an independent movie, and you could do it anywhere. So it just kind of inspired everybody, all my friends and me, to start making movies. And we started to grow from there.
Eric?
So I didn't even know that cosplay photography was ever a thing. Like growing up, it was like just something that I didn't know. And as a photographer, I was like reaching out to like do photo shoots and doing different things. But one of the like artworks that kind of like inspired me a little bit was Annie Leibovitz, how she has that sort of series where she's recreating a lot of Disney artworks or just characters with like celebrities like Russell Brand as Captain Hook, or I think it was like Oprah Winfrey as Ursula, I want to say. But it was that bit where it was kind of like inspiring to see that. But then when I came into the cosplay scene and took in photos, it just kind of like inspired me to take more, try to replicate that work as well. And among like meeting so many other talented cosplay photographers to help push my craft.
And sitting here in an MST3K cosplay, I would be remiss if I didn't admit that I got started doing this watching the show and just realizing that the idea of just taking something made by somebody else and just having fun with it, whether you're making fun of it or just wanting to make your own version of it, was a good idea. It was fun. It was something other people would look at and get. So I looked at that and said, I want to do my own thing someday, and I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I'm going to do it. So I guess from there, I would say if you had advice to give a younger creator who might be following in your footsteps, maybe just a step or two behind you, what might you say to them?
It's funny enough, I was actually giving someone advice earlier who was trying to get started in cosplay photography. So it's funny that you asked that question. Okay. As I kind of like what I stated to them earlier is that I think it's just the main thing as a cosplayer. Again, I don't know whether to talk as a cosplayer or a cosplay photographer. That's the difficult part right there. But I guess the things that can work along is to just test things around, test your craft, whether it is to experiment on into either sewing projects, armor builds, painting, makeup. I know that's a big thing for cosplayers as they're trying to improve their craft. As a photographer, going out there, going to conventions like this, getting coverage, networking, and just getting yourself out there and testing the grounds and pushing yourself into some new territories.
With film, it's not giving up. There's so many people out there that'll tell you you can't do it, you'll never make it or whatnot. But if you look locally, you'll see different people who have succeeded. You know, I work in Kenosha, and Orson Welles is from Kenosha. You know, Jack Benny's from Waukegan. You know, there are a lot of famous people who made it. But don't give up. Don't let the negative get to you. Just keep doing what you want to do. Get better at it, practice, and just keep going.
Advice for a younger creator?
So your question?
Yes. Advice for a younger creator?
Well, advice for younger creator.
Yeah.
You mean particular about manga?
Yes.
How to train themselves?
Yes.
今そういうふうに人たち若い世代の人たちに対して何かその漫画一体どうしたらいい漫画家になれるのかっていうそのまあ何かアドバイスありますか？
よく聞かれるんですけれども、どういう秘訣があるかっていうのをよく聞かれます。
What is the secret to become professional manga artist? I'm often asked this question.
僕がよく答えるのは、とにかく好きなものをたくさん描いて人に見せることです。
My answer is draw what you really like. キャラクターですか？
キャラクターでも何でも。
Whatever you like anime characters, original characters. Yes, the characters are whatever you really like most or best. Like popular anime characters or your own characters. Draw a lot, draw often. Then show show people as many as possible. That's my advice.
Yes, animal is okay, kaiju is okay, people is okay. My character is okay, but most important is to show and get opinion.
Yes, showing to other people and ask for their opinions, the feedback.
So one thing I'd like to turn over to the audience in just a minute here, but I think before I do, I want to ask one more big question, and that is that the history of fan media has also been the story of how the studios that hold these IPs and the companies that make these things for money have reacted to us. So I guess I'd like to ask, what has been your experience in that field nowadays? Eric?
Give me a moment. I
Okay,
need to think.
you haven't had a bad experience, is what I'm getting at. As in anybody challenging your works, or
I don't think as a cosplay photographer, I've not really encountered any struggles or issues. If anything, especially because I'm not making too much of a profit, especially of publications or something like that. But if anything, especially sharing my work, sharing other cosplayers as well, has helped promoted stuff. Like I posted like a League of Legends cosplay like earlier this week, and I saw them like respond to my posts, and it was just so exciting to see like the hype that they bring. And I feel like a lot of studios reach out to cosplayers a lot to help out with their products or with their things more often than not. Especially like Warner Brothers, they have a program where they invite cosplayers to either be part on sets. Like one friend of mine worked on one of the Fantastic Beasts movie. So I think that, or even inviting them to releases for movies just to be able to hype everything up. So I feel like studios like to use cosplay a lot in a way to promote their materials.
And I get the feeling that's something we wouldn't have seen about 20 years ago, is a big company reaching out to a small cosplay group and just saying, hey, look at this thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, like, especially in the Chicago area, there's like a few different people that reached out to us, like, even like whether it is for like movie releases or something local, where my group, we got an invite to attend a live show of 20-sided dice, which is sort of like an improv D&D game. And they asked us just come in, dress up as characters, whether Lord of the Rings, Critical Role, fantasy. So a lot of people like that because it is such good publications.
And you actually have had the opportunity to work directly with the publishers. How has that worked out for you?
You're talking about he already received licenses from major productions.
Yes.
And it's how that works, how that is, how that is influence his artwork.
Yes.
例えばすでにあなたの場合は全部ピーポーとか作られとかライセンス取ってますよね。でそれ自分自身の漫画表現、あとはその商売になりますか？そういうような実際どういうふうに影響してます？
商売になりますかと。なります。それはなります。
まずbusiness aspects, he's already licensed,
okay.
And he's creating these licensed characters, and the business wise, this is it's profitable. This is very なりますよね。It's very profitable.
もちろんなります。で、この漫画も一応自分のキャラクター、この漫画もですね、自分のストーリーで書いてますけれども、これも商売になりますし、一応版権元の許可も受けてますので、まあ一応僕はクリアしております。
ストーリーも自分で作ってるんで、His case is very ideal because he's licensed from the original productions, and also he was allowed to create his own story. So as a creator, this is very satisfying experience.
Yes.
まあもちろんライセンス元と話をして折り合いつけてからの話ですけれども。
Of course, he's very happy about his own creation, but of course he received official license and permission from the original stakeholder.
ライセンスを持っている僕が言うのも変なんですけれども、ちょっとだけ東宝とかに怒られそうな話を今からちょっとだけしますけれども。
But this is let me share my own story. It's a bit different from what you want to hear, but
ライセンスを持ってなくて絵を描くのは、ライセンスの絵を描くのは本当は違法です。
Well, if you don't get a receipt if you don't get a license, if you are not licensed and you create this kind of production, it's illegal.
本当は日本では違法なんですけれども、それがまあ本当にビビたるもの、商売にならない程度のものですとか、まあネットで素人が書いてあげるものですとかは版権元は目をつぶります。
He's talking about it's in Japan, okay, in Japan. And of course, it is illegal to create this type of fan media, comics, and illustration. It is illegal. However, in Japan, if this does not make much profit, and if it is apparently it's not bringing profits to the creator, those major productions, like even Toho, Toho is Japan's largest movie house, created Godzilla and also have a license of Godzilla. They ignore on purpose because the creators do not make much profit. They know it's illegal, however, no lawsuit. They simply, the movie houses and also stakeholders, license holders, ignore those artists in Japan.
小さすぎるものに関しては目をつぶらざるを得ないです。
なぜかっていうと、その裁判とかの方が。
なぜかというと、小さいことに裁判したらとてもお金がかかるので、東宝とかはそういうことはしません。
Why those major publishers and movie houses ignore? The reason is money. Because if they start suing those Japanese creators, think about it. Lawsuit costs tons of money. So those giants do not want to spend money for lawsuits.
ただし、僕のようなものがこういうゴジラの絵を、許可なく描いたら、東宝から仕事が来なくなるのでそういうことはしません。
However, professional artists like me do the same thing. I would perhaps be kicked out, and the Toho currently he has a permission license from Toho. But if he did outside beyond their license, he would be perhaps fired from the Toho studio, and his license would be taken away. So, like a professional case like him, he would never do that.
ただし抜け道があって、コミックマーケットに出せば、そこは、無法地帯になるので、そういう方はたくさんいらっしゃいます。
However, professional or even semi-professional artists, there is one way to clear this type of challenge. World famous comic market, Comic-E in Japan, was largest comic convention in Tokyo. For this is because huge market and very popular. Even if you are professional, semi-professional, you have booths, your own booths, and have the business there. Those corporate giants would also ignore.
Is it okay for one answer?
Yeah. Okay. So I now want to open it up to the audience because we're starting to run out of time here, and just kind of ask if you have any questions or comments about the way fandom has grown until now, or the way it might be going in the future. You can step on up to the mic. Okay, and if not, that's okay too. But before we go, I want to give my esteemed colleagues a chance to plug their own works there and what they're doing. They're all here at the con today, obviously, so reach out to them and see if you can grab some of their stuff. Go ahead and start.
I'm at booth 1511. We just put our third movie on Blu-ray right now. It's called Darkness Has Covered My Light. Then we got 4 others coming out this year. We got Treadless Fantasy, which stars Jeremy Lindholm. If you're a Twin Peaks fan or a Z Nation fan, he's in both those shows. We've got Until the End of Time, which is a sci-fi horror film coming out. We've got Pizzodacy, which is my comedy that'll be released in the theater in September, October. And then we just shot a movie called Crying to the Stars in Tennessee in April. That'll be early next year. We're releasing that, and that's going to be my award-winning movie.
Eric?
You can follow me on Erik Jaw's photo on Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter. For the cosplay group that I help out with, Chicago Cosplay Meetups, our booth is down. I believe CZ17. Just look for the white backdrop in our banner. We're still offering photos for cosplayers coming right up, and yeah.
Hiroshi?
About the near future activities, near future. Okay. In his case, ともかくアメリカだとコンベンション参加ですよね。これからの参加のコンベンションを言ってください。
コンベンション。
Yeah.
His case, yes, perhaps for you, for the people in America, he will take part in more conventions.
Yeah, yeah. She's right. So, I always go to attend to G Fest and
G-Fest in July.
yeah, G Fest in
But
July.
Real Fest in July. In Rosemont.
San Diego Comic Con.
San Diego Comic Con.
I have panel. So and Star Trek convention. Yeah. On August.
Star Trek convention in August.
These three conventions I always attend.
He always attends, and his comics, licensed comics available in those conventions. His own comics available as well.
Commission available.
And I'm the host again of the Hungry Trilobite podcast. I'll have cards passed out. If you want to subscribe to my show, we have lots of conversations with people from all parts of the industry. And I want to thank you all so much for being here and coming out to Chicago Fan Expo.